right, so we're diving into Young Spray's story today. You sent over this intense interview with him from the Realer Than Most podcast.
Oh, yeah, I remember you mentioning that one.
And let me tell you, this isn't your typical polished, PR managed interview. This is raw, unfiltered Spray, doesn't hold back. He gets real about his life, his struggles, everything from his childhood to running his own label now.
Yeah, that's what I found so compelling about it. You can tell he's not trying to sugarcoat anything. It's refreshing, especially these days when everything feels so curated.
Exactly. You were right to flag it for a deep dive. So he starts off talking about moving from Dominica to England as a kid.
Right, huge culture shock, I imagine.
Totally. He talks about sticking out, facing bullying, racism. You really get a feel for how those early experiences shaped him.
It makes you think, right? Those formative years, trying to find your place in a new environment and constantly being made to feel like an outsider. That leaves a mark.
It does. And then it's not like things were easy at home either. He talks about this strained relationship with his father, the pain of not resolving things before his father passed away. You can hear that regret in his voice.
It's tough, those unspoken emotions, especially in families, right? You add cultural expectations into the mix, maybe some communication barriers, things left unsaid. It can really have a lasting impact.
Absolutely. And you can see how he carries that weight with him. As he gets older, he starts getting into trouble, run-ins with the law, and then, boom, Feltham Prison at 16 for robbery.
That's a tough one.
It is, but the way he describes it, it's almost casual, like he's talking about a summer job or something.
It's that detached tone, you know?
Yeah.
Makes you wonder if it's a coping mechanism, maybe a way to deal with the trauma.
It's like a defense mechanism, right?
Exactly. You put on a brave face, act tough,
Yeah.
but those emotions, they don't just disappear.
And for him, prison is also where things take an interesting turn. He starts writing poetry as an outlet.
That's amazing, finding creativity in a place like that.
Right. And then his brother sends him some instrumentals, and boom, those poems become rap lyrics.
It's like that spark ignited something in him.
Totally. And that's where we start to see the emergence of Young Spray, the artist.
From poetry in prison to...
From poetry in prison to, well, it's not exactly a straight line to success, is it?
Not quite.
He gets out, he's got music as an outlet, but he still ends up back in his old ways, selling drugs, back behind bars. You have to wonder how hard it is to break free from that cycle, even when you find something positive.
It's that pull, isn't it? The pressure, the familiarity. Sometimes it's easier to fall back into old habits, especially when you're surrounded by the same environment, the same pressures.
It's like he's fighting against the current. And it's not just about him, right? It's about his family, his community, that sense of responsibility he carries. But then there's this turning point, this letter he writes to the judge.
Hey, that was powerful.
He bears his soul, talks about wanting to change, wanting something different, and he gets a more lenient sentence than he expected.
Makes you think about the purpose of the justice system, right? Is it purely punitive? Or should there be room for rehabilitation, for recognizing potential?
Big questions. And it seems like that second chance, that belief from the judge, it might have been the push he needed. He gets transferred to Doncaster Prison, and this time, things are different. He dives headfirst into music production.
It's like that creative spark, it never really went away. Just needed the right environment to catch fire again.
And catch fire it does. He writes, "Get away" while he's still inside. That track, it's raw, it's powerful, it's a glimpse of what he's capable of.
It's authentic, and you can hear the hunger in his voice, that desire to break free, not just physically, but creatively.
And the music world takes notice. He links up with North Star, forms Mandem. They start making waves in the grime scene. It's a whirlwind, right? From writing rhymes in a cell to collaborating, performing, the whole 9 yards.
It's a crash course in a whole different world. The music industry, especially in a genre like grime, it's fast-paced, it's competitive, it's all about navigating those relationships, those creative clashes.
And those clashes, they come to the forefront with Mandem, don't they? He talks about tensions within the group, disagreements about their sound.
Creative differences, those can make or break a group, especially when you've got strong personalities, different visions for where things should go.
He wanted to keep it raw, authentic, true to his roots, while it seems like North Star was pushing for a more commercial vibe. Eventually, they split.
It's that age-old dilemma, isn't it? Do you stay true to your artistic vision, even if it means sacrificing commercial success? Or do you compromise, adapt to the demands of the industry, even if it means losing a bit of yourself in the process?
Tough choices. And for Spray, going solo, it turns out to be the right move. He releases Really the Most Vol. 1, and it explodes. People connect with his honesty, his rawness, that unapologetic style.
And let's not forget the visuals. He brought a whole new dimension to the grime scene with those music videos. He understood the power of creating a whole world around the music.
Totally. And then, as if to silence any doubters, he drops really the most Vol 2. He even admits part of the drive was seeing other artists like Hard Body coming up, that competitive spirit pushing him to go harder.
That's the thing about competition, right? It can bring out the best in artists, push them to innovate, to constantly evolve.
And the recognition keeps coming. He gets signed to Lily Allen's label, releases Invisible Tears, plays bigger shows, even does a German Whip remix that blows up. It's like he's on top of the world.
He'd made it, right? From prison cells to major labels, it's the dream. But sometimes, even dreams come with a price.
And that's what's so interesting about this part of his story, right? He's vague about the specifics, but you can tell there was tension, frustration, maybe even a sense of betrayal. He changes management, hints at disagreements about his music, his direction. It's like the industry machine, those pressures, they were starting to wear him down.
It's that constant push and pull, isn't it? Staying true to yourself versus playing the game, conforming to expectations. And for someone like Spray, who built his entire career on authenticity, on speaking his truth, I can see how those compromises would be especially difficult.
It's that moment of truth, when you have to decide what really matters. Holding on to that control, that sense of self, even if it means walking away from what everyone else sees as success.
And that's what he does, right? Starts RTM Records, takes back the reins, supports artists who share his vision. I mean, talk about a power move.
It's bold. And this is where Cream comes in. Remember I mentioned I was curious about their dynamic?
Yeah, how'd that work out? I know you were interested in his whole thing about female artists, too.
Well, they're great on the podcast, really insightful. He admits he was hesitant about signing women at first.
Interesting.
But he's clear it wasn't about talent, more like some outdated ideas he had about the industry.
It's good he owns that, though.
Yeah.
A lot of people wouldn't.
Right. Shows growth. And it gets back to what we were saying about really the most being more than just a name. It's like his whole ethos. And he's not just talking the talk. He opens up about going to therapy, dealing with his mental health.
That's huge, especially in an industry that often glorifies toughness, bravado. For someone like Spray, with his background, it's a powerful message.
Right, like it's okay to not be okay, to ask for help. And then there was that dilemma segment you mentioned, the one with the listener dealing with the unfaithful partner and the drama with her child's father.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, what do you say about that?
His advice, it was a trip. Street smarts meets genuine empathy. Didn't sugarcoat anything, but you could tell he cared.
That's real, though. It's not always about saying what people want to hear, but what they need to hear.
Exactly. And it struck me really the most isn't about being hard. It's about being true to yourself, even when it's difficult. And Spray, he embodies that. He's complex, vulnerable one minute, guarded the next, ambitious but principled, shaped by this harsh environment, but trying to create something positive.
He's a working contradiction in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But that's what makes him so compelling, right? It's that authenticity. You don't get the sense he's trying to be anyone but himself, flaws and all.
It makes you think, could we all use a little more, really the most in our lives? Where are we compromising, holding back? What would it take to own our stories, even when it's tough? Those are questions I'm walking away with, that's for sure.
Me too. Food for thought.
Definitely. All right, that was heavy, but in a good way. Thanks for bringing this one to the table.
Anytime. These are the conversations I live for.